being a young 22-year-old girl who found herself homeless, thinking that there was no way out at that time, living in temporary accommodation with a child that's looking up to me, a baby that's looking up to me. And that could have gone so many different ways.
Today, I am so excited to be sitting down with someone whose entire life was built around courage and advocacy. Creanna Dodson is a barrister at Church Court Chambers, practicing in both criminal and family law.
I was really fortunate to be awarded a scholarship from the Inner Temple, that's my inn, and that paid for bar school. Again, that was an amazing boost in confidence that people thought that I had what it took to succeed at the bar. Now at the chambers where I completed my pupillage, I was taken on as a tenant.
This comes after a 20-year career in probation and safeguarding. She's also the founder of Soaring Heights Care, an organization that she has grown over the past 10 years to over 20 homes and supporting more than 20 children and young adults.
I was dealing with a lot of young people who are unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. If I could change anything, it would be poverty. I think it would be one of the simplest things that we could do. I don't understand why we still have such disparity or such a wide gap between those who are so well off and those who are barely surviving.
And on top of all that, Creanna is also a proud mother of 4 who has carved out her own route in life from humble beginnings. Quick note before we start, if you have enjoyed this podcast and want to support our incredible guests, please follow Low to Grow podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Welcome to Low to Grow, the podcast transforming life's toughest moments into opportunity for growth. I'm Annie, a Forbes Under 30 technology founder whose entrepreneurship journey ran parallel to a mental health awakening. In every episode, I sit down with inspiring individuals and delve into how they managed to turn their personal or professional challenges into opportunities for growth. If you're facing uncertainty in your life, feeling down, or simply need a kick of inspiration to keep moving forward, this is your space for the honest and uplifting conversations that you will want to hear. Hit follow so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. Creanna, I am so excited to be having you on the Low to Grow podcast. Let me start by asking you, who do you want to be listening to our conversation today?
I think I'd like younger people who are sort of navigating life and at the point where they may be making changes in respect of their career or where their life is headed, to really sort of take heed and understand from my perspective, it doesn't matter what happens, in terms of the situations you're faced with, there are different options. So yeah, younger people.
You've had a super interesting career trajectory. Where would you say that your story started?
I think we have to go back to 2003. And it's really interesting because that's when I had my first daughter. She's now 22 years of age. And I think if we're really honest about it, I was only 22 at the time as well, and really had very little direction in terms of what the future held. And I found myself being pregnant, not really understanding where I was going to go and what I was going to do. I was then faced with homelessness during that period and really had to navigate not only my life, but also the life of my newborn, who didn't ask to be here, but was here. And I just felt I had a duty to make things better for the both of us. But it really has been sort of trial and error in terms of the journey. But yeah, that's where it started. It started as back as 2003. I then became a probation officer after having a very short period of maternity leave. In those days anyway, it was a very, very short period. And decided that I needed to pursue my career because I knew that actually there was this young child or a young baby that was dependent on me to sort of show her the way. And so I joined the London Probation Service, as it was called then, or London Probation Trust. And I did my first degree, which was a degree in criminal justice with probation studies. That was in 2004. I became a probation officer, qualified, and stayed with the probation service for 2 years after that. Around 2008, I started to get a little restless again, and then decided actually I needed to do more, because although I had a good, solid career as it, was in those days, I just wasn't able to make ends meet financially. I knew that it couldn't continue. And I was very fortunate at the time to have really good support systems in place and fantastic friends. To this day, I have, an amazing bunch of friends who are able to really look at me as a person, see my qualities, and sort of signpost me to where they thought my skills would lend itself. And then decided to go back to university. I did a master's in 2010. By that time, I'd had my second child. Every stage of my life where I've had children, I've sort of progressed onto the next level because I've just had to. And I think it always goes back to the first point in 2003, where, you're faced in that situation where you don't know what to do, but there's others depending on you. And so went and did a master's in social work, graduated from that, began my career in social work, and I was very fortunate to set up my company in 2013, a company that still exists to this day, a company that employs over 20 people, and supports or has supported countless young people, vulnerable young people, in terms of supported accommodation and those leaving care. It's been a journey, but it's been a journey that pivoted along the way. And at a later stage, 2019, I decided actually, I think I'm going to venture into law. And so I've sort of combined managing the business that I still operate to this day with support. I have a fantastic structure in place. I have operations managers, residential managers as well, and countless other staff that support me. But that sort of assisted me with pursuing my legal career. Now I'm a practicing barrister. Interestingly, I practice within crime and family law. I suppose I'm always asked this question, why that? But if we really reflect upon it, it was underpinned in everything that I'd done up until that point, from probation services or whether it was social services in terms of social work. Law underpinned everything in terms of the decision making, and now I'm here. So it's quite an interesting journey.
That's an amazing journey. And it's so incredible to hear about you going back to university, doing master's degrees whilst raising your young children, and then also making transitions in your career to new things that really challenged you and also excited you. You've grown Soaring Heights Care to now, I think, around 10 homes, and you're supporting about 20 children and also young adults. And it's
Yeah, that's
pretty
correct.
incredible how you are able to do that whilst looking after your children and also becoming a barrister. What did you learn about yourself in each of those stages of your life?
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is my ability to be resilient, my determination, because it sounds fantastic to hear of all of these accomplishments. But what I will say honestly to the audience, that it doesn't come without setbacks. So it hasn't just been this perfect sort of trajectory where I started off in 2003, 2004, and then everything's gone swimmingly well. No, there have been setbacks. I've been let down. I've had to sort of re-strategize. But I think at the core of that, having the determination and being resilient, to when you receive those no's, and you are going to receive those no's because that's part of life. But as long as you know what you want to do and you've got that determination, you've got that grit, and you're really willing to put in the hard work, because, there's been countless sleepless nights, periods of stress. But I think sort of being grounded and understanding that actually I've got to put the work in to get there. When I was growing up, my mum used to use this phrase, deferred gratification. As a young child, a teenager, that went right over my head. Like, what was this lady telling me? But it really makes sense. You have to lose, I believe, in order to gain. And so at every part of my journey, I've really sort of appreciated those setbacks because I've learned lessons during those periods. During those periods of rejection, I've been able to reflect, as I said, to re-strategize, to think, okay, what can I do next? Whether that be upskilling myself in terms of work experience I've done, or as you've just pointed out, in terms of going back to study. I've studied throughout, I now have 4 children. And I've studied throughout every single pregnancy and the early stages of having children. And they've been a part of that journey with me. So it can be done. Yes, it's difficult, but it can be done.
Mm. And how are you teaching your children about delayed gratification?
I think they see it in real life because they see me put in the work. They see the sacrifices. You know, my children still have to deal with the fact that I'm not always available. For example, I've just finished quite a long trial where I've been away for the past 7 days in Southampton, but there are periods of time where I'm not there. There are periods of time where I miss out on quite crucial moments for them, but I think they understand the reason why, and they see the sort of the end results as to it. But they know they've got to work hard, and it's really good to see because actually my eldest daughter, who's now 22, is a final year law student, and I believe she'll be following in mum's footsteps. She shared with us just a couple of weeks ago that she's ready to go to bar school. So I believe actually, without me even encouraging her to follow the same path as me, just by her seeing me do the work and the other children seeing it, be done essentially in real life, it gives them hope to think that actually I can do it as well because, mum's doing it.
Leading by example, and also just children observing and learning and doing through osmosis. I feel like
Yeah.
that's the strongest way for children to learn about anything that's super meaningful. I want to pick up on something that you said earlier about having to lose in order to gain.
Mm.
For you, what would be one example of something that you had lost or that was denied to you that actually changed the trajectory of your life for the better?
Well, I think there's been so many periods of having those setbacks or having those instances where things have been denied. If I just look at work experience, being missed up for promotions at work or being told that you don't have the necessary skills at that point, or being asked to really reflect about whether or not the career path you're making is the right one for you. I'm not very good at dealing with no's, and I think that's just my fighting spirit. So, whilst I'm not going to throw a tantrum, when you tell me it can't be done, I'm going to say, well, hold on a minute, let's find a way. So, instead of again looking at the rejection or taking those setbacks and just giving up, I don't, because I think actually there is a way, and I'm going to uncover that. It may take more time, it may take more hard work, but I will find a way because I truly believe that, the world is your oyster. And actually, when we look at the name of the company, Soaring Heights Care, there's a slogan behind that, and that's making the impossible possible. And I think that's one of the other things that I stand by. Life is not going to be all roses or all flowers. It's not going to be perfect. There are going to be highs and there are going to be many lows. But it's what you do when you receive those lows or those no's and how you sort of dig deep and really reflect. And I think actually, if I'm being really honest, at every setback that I've had, despite feeling the obvious feelings of hurt, rejection, failure, inadequacy, it's allowed me to really have that silence and that space to think and make myself vulnerable and to really think and reflect about what I want and how I'm going to get there and, what obstacles are in the way. I think I'm really good at being able to, when I receive a no and a setback, not just take it at face value, but peel those layers and see what I can do within myself to navigate around that.
Mm. Has that always been a quality that you had possessed, or was it something that you had to develop as life went on?
I think there's truth to both senses of what you say. I think part of me is that I'm just that person. It's my character and my nature that, again, I just don't take no for an answer. And I've always been the person that's just like, okay, let's go again. But also, I think just through experience in life and experiencing some of the many setbacks that I faced, when we started this conversation, I spoke about being a young 22-year-old girl who found herself homeless, um, thinking that there was no way out at that time, living in temporary accommodation with a child that's looking up to me, a baby that's looking up to me. And that could have gone so many different ways, but I still kept dreaming. I kept the dreams alive. I was like, I've got to make it work. So I think it's part of who I've always been, but also circumstances that you face can sometimes change the way you react. And if you go through life having had a number of setbacks, it can go either way, or it can go in a different way potentially, or it can really spur you on as well. And you're essentially you're wearing this invisible armor as you sort of navigate through life. You're just learning more and equipping yourself with more as well.
I think it's really beautiful. That's such a lovely analogy of how, as you go through life, you're building on the armor that you wear, and that's something that you can really put to use for good. And it's a conscious decision of whether we choose to take setbacks or failures as tools to build our armor with or to give up. And as you were saying earlier, there are so many directions that your life could have taken when you were homeless or 22 or with your first child. Would you mind sharing a bit about what was going through your mind during that period of time? And also, how did you find your resilience and the grit within you to put yourself and your child onto a good path?
I, I was thinking about that recently, actually. I think there was definitely an aspect of naivety on my part. I was still very young. On one hand, I was an adult, but I was still very young. And these were situations that I've never encountered before. So a lot of it was thinking on my feet. But again, I've been so fortunate to have a wonderful support system in place. I have friends that can really see and sort of value me as a person. They know my skills and my qualities, and they've really wanted me to succeed. And I think when you've got people that are really batting for you and that really want to see you do well because they know that you can do it, that has assisted greatly. But yeah, I think obviously it was very different then. I knew that these children deserved more, and I knew I had to be creative. I knew I had to be creative for myself, but for my family as well, to be able to provide them a standard of life that they deserved, and also myself. I'd always had these aspirations, but sometimes we get bogged down with life, and life throws many curveballs at you. And, they can initially stop you in your tracks. But again, I've had those people around me that just encourage me. And at every point that I've studied, whether it be the undergraduate degree, the master's degree, doing a postgraduate degree, and then afterwards going to bar school, I've had people championing me. My husband's been a fantastic support as well. He sometimes sees my potential more than I can because
Oh,
I am human at the end of the day. And so I think in terms of doing the demanding roles now that I have, having that support system that just believe in you and people that just say, you can do this, you've got this, we know what you're capable of. You've got so much empathy, you're so caring, you're very thoughtful, the way you engage with people, you've got to, steer into that direction. There have been things that I think have just been invaluable, really.
I love how you referenced that your husband was able to see
Yeah.
potential in you that you were not aware of. How did you pick such a husband?
How did I pick? Well, it's been a long journey. That's what I'll tell you. It's been a very long journey. We met each other when we were very young. And, as you get older, you change. You change or you lose certain habits and then you gain habits and things as well. So I think we've gone on this journey together. But one thing I will say is he's always seen my potential, and he is by far one of the biggest cheerleaders that I have. In fact, it was him that's encouraged me to come down the path of law. I never saw myself as a lawyer. It wasn't something that I remotely thought was a viable option. But I think just having people around you that can just see the skills and the qualities that you have and know that you can do it with the right signposting, with meeting the right people as well, and with doing the hard work. It's just been fantastic to have him by my side as we navigate together on this journey. And, even with the company that we've built as well. So it's fantastic.
So tell me a bit more about how you decided to transition to become a barrister because, you had Soaring Heights Care. It was a successful organization and it's still running. So why did you choose to take on something else into your life?
I am known as somebody who can get quite itchy feet. So I never get too comfortable. I'm always like, oh, what's next? And, my friends refer to me as being quite speedy. That's just the person that I am. I'm here, there, and everywhere, always trying to, have or be involved in new experiences and just understand different things. So I think in terms of transitioning to law, though, there was that sort of light bulb moment. Aha, the law has been the center of everything I've done in terms of my work experience. And it was actually just sort of joining the dots together and thinking, actually, I do advocacy when, I'm working with clients. I've got all of those soft skills. I've got a lot of transferable skills. I know the law. I can do this. And again, with the support and with the encouragement, it just felt like it was natural at that phase in my life. At that time within the company, I was dealing with a lot of young people who are unaccompanied asylum seeking children. And so just by the virtue of that, I was working quite closely or signposting to solicitors. So I think there was one angle of me sort of becoming interested in law. There'd been other experiences as well in terms of family who had required legal advice. And somehow you just become involved in those situations and you're signposted to amazing advocates. And then it just sort of happened naturally. When I say it happened naturally, I did have to think about what I was doing. It wasn't something that I just sort of fell into. There was definitely thought about that transition. But in terms of me transitioning to become a lawyer, I think it was relatively simple because of all of the past experiences and those transferable skills that I had. So I completed a graduate diploma in law, and then I was really fortunate to be awarded a scholarship from the Inner Temple, that's my inn, and that paid for bar school. Again, that was an amazing boost, in confidence that actually people thought that I had what it took to succeed at the bar. And lo and behold, I completed bar school. And then I was very fortunate enough to obtain pupillage in 2023. I'm now at the chambers where I completed my pupillage. I was taken on as a tenant. So again, it's just all sort of slotted in terms of moving into this new phase of my life, as I like to call it. Who knows what the future holds? That's what I say. Who knows where I'm going to go next? But I love it because it just feels as though everything that I've been working really hard for over the last 20 years has finally come together. And I believe that I'm just doing the best job that I can do in terms of still being committed to working with the most vulnerable in society, ensuring their voices are heard and providing that support that I can do when I'm at court. Who knows where I'm going to go next? But I love it because it just feels as though everything that I've been working really hard for over the last 20 years has finally come together. And I believe that I'm just doing the best job that I can do in terms of still being committed to working with the most vulnerable in society, ensuring their voices are heard and providing that support that I can do when I'm at court.
Creanna, it's so inspiring hearing you describe your journey and also how all the pieces of your life are fitting together now. And it's really, really nice to see you light up when you talk about it.
Oh, thank you. I've heard that happens.
Yes, yes. And also to hear you light up earlier when you were talking about the various degrees that you did, I think that's so amazing. And it shows that you are someone who is on the path that you are meant to be and that you're excelling in.
Yes.
What would you say is one unfair advantage that you have had that people wouldn't necessarily think about?
Unfair advantage, that's a good one. I think actually in this instance, it's been my age and my life experience. I think that has been invaluable in terms of transitioning into law in particular, just because I have navigated through life to this age with a number of setbacks. It hasn't been a hindrance for me. Yes, I've been annoyed. Yes, I've been disappointed. Yes, I felt like giving up, but I haven't. And I've just been able to sort of use all of those experiences and it's essentially shaped who I am today. So I think my age has definitely allowed me to, as I've got older, actually, I've got a bit more chilled as well. I must say, I was very, very anxious, I think, in my early 20s. There was a definite need to please and eagerness as well. And I think as I've become more older, I really value what's important to me. And ultimately, that's my family. That's the most important thing. So it doesn't matter how ambitious I am, I need to make sure that my family are okay. And so obviously I know sort of where to prioritize those goals. But I think my age and my life experiences have definitely helped shape where I am today.
What advice would you give to someone who's in their 20s who is trying to build out a career in corporate or in law themselves, and if they also relate to being people pleasers?
Firstly, don't be so hung up. Don't be so anxious like I was. You need to work hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have to work hard and you have to be determined, but enjoy life. We don't know how long we're here for. Enjoy life, enjoy experiences, have new experiences, meet new people, and just understand and believe that actually where you're meant to be, you will end up. It's going to map itself out along the way. So you need to work hard, you need to be ambitious, but enjoy yourself. Take time for yourself. Look after your own emotional well being, your mental health. Have breaks. I see people work so hard now. And whilst on one hand, I commend that, I think that the flip side of that is actually we can work too hard and not really take stock of what's in front of us at that moment. So live in the present as well is something that's really, really important for me. And
Mm.
it's something that I think I do. I take regular breaks. I am known for taking breaks. I know my capacity bucket, my emotional capacity bucket. I know when I'm a bit tense and I need to just stop. That's a habit that I've picked up through the work experience that I've done. Essentially, you're dealing with very involuntary clients, clients that don't want to be around you, people that don't necessarily want the intervention, and it can become very overwhelming. So, what I've learned is that actually every couple of months, have a week off. It's okay. Do something fun. Switch off. Put the laptop down. It's still going to be there when you come back to it. So having that balance is definitely something that I think is important as young people try to navigate their careers and just sort of navigating life. I honestly believe that things are harder now, and it's something that we don't really talk about as much, but things are harder now. Although I'm sharing experiences of being homeless, and feeling to some degree helpless. Things are much harder now than they were 20 years ago. So I think it's really important to get that balance. Yes, you want to excel in your career, but you also need to have a life. That's important.
In what ways do you think that things are harder now compared to 20 years ago?
I think in terms of the available opportunities. So, for example, I was homeless in 2003, early 2004. I come from sort of a very modest background, working class backgrounds, you're able to approach the local authority and get assistance. You can still get assistance, but it's very limited. I was still able to be supported within my local connection. Now, for example, if somebody requires assistance in terms of housing, they may be accommodated hundreds of miles away. They don't have those options. So I think even in terms of job opportunities, sometimes it's rather limited, but that's just the way the world is essentially now. And we've got to learn and find new ways to adapt to that. So I think that's where I would say it's a bit challenging. It's a bit more challenging. I also think those days we were just more friendlier. We're a bit more friendlier. There were more discussions. You'd just sort of be out and around. We didn't have remote working. It was every day, 9 to 5 in the office. Remote working is more of a newer concept, something that we're all still adjusting and adapting to. But it allowed us being in the offices and seeing people to interact. And that's where you started to pick up those soft skills. You'd go out for after work drinks or just to socialize. Whereas now it's just a bit harder and people are more alienated now. So I think there's just a number of challenges that younger people are faced with.
Understood. And thank you for sharing that. For you in your position as a successful barrister, how do you see AI tools coming into play in your industry?
Yes. Well, I think in terms of the legal sector, it's something that we must be aware of and we must adapt to and sort of incorporate it into our work. But I don't see it as for now being a major threat to law as a whole. But it's something that we need to understand is a growing area that is it's here to stay. It's here to stay. And that's the end of it. So we must adapt and we must understand and we must implement as well.
And what is one thing that you're doing yourself to adopt or to embrace AI in your day to day?
I'm still at the end of the AI tell. My children are sometimes encouraging me to understand the functions of tools, chat GPT. I'm still a bit behind, but I am sort of coming to grips with it and understanding it more. And again, it's here to stay. It is going to change and shape the way that we work, the way that industries run. So I think it's just about recognizing this is the way that the world is going to operate and incorporating it into what I do. My children are fantastic, I must say. They're saying, Mom, you need to understand this, you need to do that. So yeah, I'm being assisted by the younger generation.
That's beautiful. And Creanna, if you had the power, what would be the one thing that you would change tomorrow?
Gosh. Well, the one thing that I think that there should be equality for all, and I've always felt that, and I've always tried to champion that. But if I could change anything, it would be poverty. I think it would be one of the simplest things that we could do. I don't understand why we still have such disparity or such a wide gap between those who are so well off and those who are barely surviving. I still can't comprehend it. That would be on my wish list, 100%.
And what is one thing that people could do from tomorrow to work towards that future?
In terms of individuals, that's rather challenging. I mean, we could all sort of assist more in terms of resources that are available, local food banks, but I think it comes from a sort of wider focus of government policy, and it requires more input from government, essentially. It's something that world leaders can come together on and really pay more attention to.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, Creanna. Let me end by asking you our podcast staple, which is what is one thing that you believe will allow more people to have better mental health?
Taking time out. I touched on this before. It's so important to understand and recognize when your capacity bucket is filling. It's about to tip over. You need to understand the limitations of what you can do and what you can't do, and understand that you can't do it all. I've had to find that out the hard way. I am not a superwoman. I am a human being. There's only so much I can do. And that's why I rely heavily on those that I trust who are around me to support, to signpost, and for me to delegate as well. But looking after your mental health, looking after your emotional well-being is paramount. And definitely, I think by taking some time out, having breaks, traveling, even just enjoying hobbies, having a pastime, rest and recharge, and very important things in this very demanding world that we live in now.
Creanna, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for sharing so openly about your own experiences, and also for painting such a vivid picture of what it means to be succeeding in today's world.
Thank you very much for having me on and for allowing me to share those experiences and hopefully give some pointers to people of things that they can sort of utilize and take on.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Low to Grow podcast. If it resonated with you, leave a review and hit follow to help more people to find important conversations. Keep growing and see you next time.